This is Jets at Noon with Cameron Poitras and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
Welcome to Jets at Noon. I'm Braden Owasco, in for Tyson Rowicki, in for Cam Poitras, with Jim Toth, as always. Jim, you just never go anywhere. You're just here.
We're reaching down a single A ball here. We had Cam from the majors, and then we went to Triple A. There was no one, so we went to Double A and got Tyson, and now we're tapping you. Bring up the lefty. Are you lefty or righty?
Well, I'm a righty.
Righty. Bring up the righty.
Yeah.
Dime a dozen the righties. But you are one in a million and unique. Good for having you here. You have on the original Jets jersey.
I do. Yeah.
It's not a retro. That's the original.
I found it in my dad's
1.0.
I found it in my dad's closet. Going to the game tonight, Jets Blues. I'm gonna have fun. I haven't been to a game in a while, so I was pumped up, and I found this in my dad's closet, and it was sort of stained and yellow.
From what? Cigarettes?
No, he doesn't smoke.
What's the mustard?
Maybe a little mustard. Just like you and Rowicki were talking about the dogs yesterday. You got to go to a Jets game. You got to enjoy some dogs.
Got to get some hot dogs, yeah.
So, so I found it there, and I was like, well, this looks like garbage. And my mom goes, I'll be able to wash it. I'll figure it out. I don't know what she did, but it looks brand new.
Your mom did that for you. It does look brand new.
Yeah. So
I do. I like that. That's the old school original white home Winnipeg Jets jersey.
You know what? It's great as well.
You're going to get a lot of compliments on that tonight.
I hope so. Well, I don't know if I hope so.
Your dad knows fashion.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, okay, sure. Well, it's great for the whiteouts when you get to go to the Jets playoff games and you know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much wearing what I would wear to the whiteouts.
Well, I don't know if there'll be one this year.
Well, we won't talk about that right now.
Is that the segue?
That's the segue. Jim, how'd you feel? The Taves celebration. Get your text in again. Like I said earlier, 204-780-6800. Brought to you by Boston Pizza, where it's Pasta Tuesday every day this January for only $11.99. Hungry for saucy savings. Hungry for Boston Pizza again. 204-780-6800. The call-in line as well, you can call into 204-780-6800. So two different numbers. If you want to call in, that's where you can leave us voice messages that Cam plays to give away. You guys give away the Boston Pizza gift card for that one, right?
Yes, and then you get a $50 gift card to go to BP for that lunch. And if at that price, you could take a couple buddies for lunch if you win that. So call in.
And all it takes is a call.
We get the calls from all hours because I get an email when a call comes in.
Do you get them like right after the game?
Right after the game. We get them mid-game. Like last night, I would presume we got one mid-game.
Yeah.
No, we didn't. Not last night. But there was a couple games when it goes awry. The Edmonton game, when it was 3-0 real quick in Edmonton, by the end of the first period, we had calls. So, but a lot of calls come in at night or when people get home and stuff, so we appreciate it. But look, I first and foremost, well, not first and foremost, because the season is teetering here. I walked to get a coffee this morning on the concourse here downtown Winnipeg, and I ran into two of our city's finest. I've known him for years. One of them coaches minor hockey. Other one's just a beauty. He's a great guy. And they said, so you working the game tonight? And I said, no, not tonight. I'm working Saturday against Detroit. And I said, but I don't know. It's kind of, and they're like, whoa. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, they just won 4 in a row. They got, points and, 9 points, and they can win again just because of last night. And I'm like, I don't know. Last night with Chicago, if you win both those games last night and tonight, you're back in it. And I don't care what people say. But that's how fragile this is. To not get a point, you needed 3 or 4 points last night and tonight to get right back in it. So they remain in last in the division. Chicago moves up with 47 points. St. Louis tonight, their opponent, has 46 after getting pumped in Edmonton, so they'll be upset. And the Jets have 44 points. So with the win last night, they move ahead of Chicago. And they'll be tied with St. Louis. They win tonight, they now have 48 points. And depending on other teams, 48 points would have them 6th. And then you are simply 5 points back. Right now, you're 9 points back.
Yeah, and what I don't want to have.
Sorry, can I just finish?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
I do want your opinion on this because here's what I'm going to tell you. There's losing that game last night, which is devastating to the process of what they're doing. And then there's not scoring a goal. In a game like that, when it's on the table, and you are the most veteran, oldest team in the National Hockey League, and Connor Hellebuyck's playing sensational.
Yeah.
How you do not even get a goal is just, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to make of this team anymore. They're better than this, and yet they're not.
This is my issue. While watching that game yesterday, the first period and a half, I thought they looked unbelievable.
Yeah.
They were pushing nonstop. They looked like the Jets team that has been winning in the past few games, and they've been putting it together. Then you saw them die out. And maybe that's because the goals weren't going in early on in that game when they had a bunch of chances and they had a bunch of opportunities. But you can't let that one slip away. I think you were so in that game. You were in control for the first period and a half. And then the Blackhawks score, and you see the tables turn. And that's been sort of the problem that I've had this entire season with the Jets so far. And I don't want to take anything away. I think it was still a pretty good game from the Jets. And I don't want anybody to sit here and just write them off right now because they ended up losing a game they maybe should have won. That's happened a few times to this Winnipeg Jets team. The problem is you have to play a full 60. And I think that's something that's been missing this whole year, is to find a game where this team plays even a solid 40 minutes is tough to come by. They have a really good period and a half, but then it sort of goes to the wayside.
Well, and this goes back to the fashion in which they lost to the Leafs up 3-1. And Tyson and I spent a lot of time on that yesterday, me saying, there's losing games that you're just not in or you don't play well, and you can get up and go, we didn't play well. We've got 4, games where we got 4 games in a row. We got 8 points. That's fine. I know they got a point on the Toronto game, but how many more times can you have these deflating losses where you are up 3-1, you're up 2-0, you're up 4-1, you're playing well in a 0-0 game, you give up 1 goal, and you can't find one single goal or manufacture one. It's just tough to keep getting up. There's losing. And then there's losing in these fashions, which are just more weighted, in my opinion. It's tough to shake these off. It's tough to shake off Saturday night against Toronto, even though you got a point. If you were in the wild card or 2 points out and you got a point, you'd be like, hey, we got a point. Let's move on. But when you have games in your grasp and you let them go, and I know there's another team out there, but it's real tough to keep getting up off the mat. And now, so then the Toronto game, so you go down to Chicago, you play a really good opening period and a half. You lit up a goal. I don't think Connor Hellebuyck was expecting it. And we can call it soft, you can call it not. But other than that goal, he played sensational. And you just can't manufacture one. So they get on a plane, they come home, they don't get any sleep. They get up today, you got to get up off the mat again.
Yeah.
And it's like the last 48 hours mentally is just excruciatingly grinding because of the hole you're in. And now they got to face St. Louis tonight, which we both know these teams don't like each other. St. Louis isn't very good and playing good hockey. They got goalies hiding in the hallways, and they got, assistant coaches going down to the A to coach head coach and all this stuff going on around them. And how do you feel about tonight?
Yeah.
I don't feel good about it. I'm like, they need these 2 points desperately. And if things go awry, like say they take a penalty, go down 1-0, then they go down 2-0. What's your feeling around this team? And if that's how you're feeling, how do you think they're feeling? Now, they're professional. They've been trained. It's a new game. You got to just look forward, all this stuff. But when you lose in these kinds of fashions and the importance of what the weight of the magnitude of these games are, it's tougher to just get up and go, okay, St. Louis, let's beat them. Because if they beat them tonight, Braden, they have 46 points. They are tied with St. Louis with more regulation wins, depending on the other teams. But then, then you get ready for Florida. Yeah. Then Detroit. And then you got to go to New Jersey and Tampa Bay and Florida. Just these are points that I'm not taking any credit away from Toronto or Chicago, but you needed these points because these teams coming are going to be tougher to get those points off of.
No, and you're absolutely right. And I think the way in which they lose is almost harder, right? You look at a team like Vancouver who goes out and gets absolutely pummeled on a nightly basis. Like, yeah, that's tough, but eventually it's like, hey, we're just not playing good hockey. We can't put it together. You look at a team like the Jets who are losing 1-goal games consistently.
And we're not very good. Like Vancouver, I'm sorry. You can sit there and go, we're not a,
Yeah.
It's that old adage. Remember Columbus a couple of years ago, and Laine said what he said, and then Zach Rowinski came out and he was like, we take offense to that. We welcomed him in.
Yeah.
We were very supportive of him. We thought we were building in the right direction. None of us give up at January or February. We're all still in this and stuff. It's tough for Vancouver right now. There's nobody sitting around Vancouver going, we should be winning these games when they lose 6-1 or get shut out 6-0 on home ice.
Yeah.
Nobody's sitting there, we should have won that game. It's just a different vibe when you're desperate for these points. You're a better team than your record, and yet you are what your record is. And you I'm not going to say throw these games away, but just it's easier if Toronto comes in here, you play your tail off. They get a late power play goal. It's 3-2 and an empty netter to lose 4-2. I honestly believe that's easier to bounce back from than being up 3-1 on home ice and you don't get it done. And then you go down to Chicago on Jonathan Taves night, and a beautiful ovation, and everything's going well, and the goalie's playing out of his head, and you just can't. Now you got to get up again, right? Because guess who's here? The team you're chasing.
Yeah, and that's the big part in all of this, right? Is these two games were so massive, and to then go and have a great start to that game and play like they did in that first period against Chicago, and even into the second period, like I said before, and then to fall short, and not only fall short, not score a goal. And you got to think, how does this team realistically come in at home, Canada Life Center tonight, and have any type of good feelings about beating the Blues? And maybe it happens. Maybe it does.
No, but this is the thing, too. This is why I think it's more frustrating, is because we got a text here that said they're not that good. They're not that good no matter what you believe. The third line was considered the top 10 best line in the slot for years and the slowest line in hockey. I get the Solomonson illness, but play Shen does not help. Shen has been playing good lately. They are that good. They're better than what they're playing right now. They were really good last night for large portions of that game.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And they just can't get it done, right? Like, I think they're a better team than Chicago. I think they're a better team than St. Louis. But yet, I'm not trying to argue they don't deserve their record. They earned this record. They earned it with their play, but that's the frustrating thing. As per the two of our city's finest, I know, the police officers said, they just rattled off 4 in a row and got a point in a 5th straight game. Bad teams, Vancouver's not doing that. Vancouver's not going to go on a 4-game heater. And neither is St. Louis, and neither is Chicago.
Yeah.
But the Jets did because they could, and therein lies the frustration, I think.
And I don't understand when we get texts like this, and we always appreciate the text either way, whether you agree or disagree with whatever we're saying.
I get their point, though. Like
me too.
How do you sit here with 44 points at this point of the season and go, they're good? I'm not saying they're great. I'm saying they're better than their record is.
The argument is watching the games and understanding that this isn't a team that's going out and getting blown out every night. They're not losing 6-2. They're battling and fighting, and they're still not playing their best hockey, and they're still in these games. That shows you a lot more.
And the mentality of around, if Jonathan Taves doesn't hit that post and crossbar and they win that game.
Yeah.
And I know ifs, wishes, and whatever, horseshoes and hand grenades and all this. I don't understand that. But that's a different feeling, right? All of a sudden you won 5 in a row. You lose last night. You got that extra point. We won 5 in a row. You only lost 1. You come back and blah, blah. But to not get that extra point when you're up 3-1. Or you're up 2-0 and 25 seconds later you let in a goal. Those are devastating when you're in this position.
Yeah. And I'm not sitting here.
You think Vancouver's devastated when it's 3-0 then it's 4-0? They're not devastated, right?
No.
But when the Jets are up 2-0 and 25 seconds later, that's devastating. When they're up 3-1 and they lose in overtime, it's devastating. When they go to Chicago and play a great 60 or 30 minutes and then they go down 1 and then they're all over them in the third period. I mean, all over them. And they can't get one. It's devastating.
Yeah. And I'm not going to sit here, and I don't want anybody to say that I'm defending this team till the day I die or anything like that. It's not all candy and rainbows here either. Obviously, you can't have this many points. This team has to find a way to pull themselves out of it. And I expected, when they had a very slow start, I expected this team to do that, to pull themselves up and start winning games and finding ways to win. But at the end of the day, it hasn't happened. So you got to take that into consideration too.
Anyways, fascinating talk. But like if they win tonight and Florida comes here, they can beat Florida's struggling. Detroit's going to be tough. Then you go on the road. Like that's the weird part about this team, right? Is they could, but I mean, to me, it began last night and tonight. And if you don't, I thought if you need at least 3 points, and that's impossible now.
Yeah.
If you don't win in regulation tonight, I mean, in comes Florida, in comes Detroit.
No, I think this would be
and they have a chance against Florida and Detroit. Don't get me wrong; like they can beat those teams.
Sure,
especially if Florida's struggling right now. I think they can, but it's a way different mindset if you've won 6 in a row and take on Florida at home than it is. Oh, we blew another lead and lost a point, and then we got shut out. This is an important game tonight.
This hour brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road and at washmethod.com. Jim, I want to ask you a little bit about, I feel like every time I'm on here we talk about fighting. But I mean, how do you not talk about a big goalie bash?
I want to know if you don't like fighting if you didn't watch last night. Did you turn it off in disgust? I can't watch this filth.
Let us know the text line, 204-780-6868. We'll be right back after this. Braden Owalsko, Jim Toth in for Jets at noon. Again, Braden Owalsko in for Tyson Rewicki, in for Cam Poitras. It's been a day. We're going to have some fun, though, Jim. Go check out the podcast exclusive if you haven't already.
Outstanding fashion talk in the podcast today. NHL and hockey player fashion talk.
I don't know how we got there.
And I don't know. It rolled around to me mentioning leg warmers and Lita Ford. So it's a trip. We go a lot. We cover a lot of miles.
That's a Tuesday for you.
Even back to my youth, which was 1,000 years ago.
I said, what was that, 1920s, 1950s?
Yeah, that was disrespectful, to be honest with you.
Sorry,
but I let it
go
because I like you.
I appreciate that. Big game tonight, Blues, Jets. We'll have it right here on 680 CJOB. Kelly Moore in the panel, and then throwing it to Paul and Mitchell for the call. But let's bring in Chris Kerber, play-by-play voice of the St. Louis Blues. And Chris, how's it going? I love your guys' broadcast. If I don't know if you remember, 2 or 3 years ago, I was the away booth for you guys, and I always enjoyed yours because the show was so much fun and so electric. So I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks for that. And how are you guys? Always good on our end.
Yeah, we're doing good. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. And we're just discussing the Jets' plight after that 2-0 shutout in Chicago, and we're discussing the Blues' plight after that 6-0 shutout in Edmonton, and we're kind of wondering how we build this game. These two teams don't like each other. There's something to talk about.
Well, it is. We were talking about this morning with Jim Montgomery a little bit. Two teams that played an epic 7-game series last year are now on the outside looking in, and both, at least with 30, 32 games to go, have an opportunity to end up with a top 5 pick. And frankly, that could be a great thing for both franchises, if I'm being, just bluntly honest with the scenario here. I think it's showing around the National Hockey League just now that Anaheim has a coach and their young players are ready to go, and they've adjusted that core with the trades that they've made. And then, Macklin Celebrini and what he's done and the recharge, the fire that they had. You could see it on the bench last night with that goalie fight. Those teams, especially in the Western Conference, are there. The Chicago Blackhawks, as you saw last night, they're better. They one of their players, we were there early in the season, and one of their players said, I said, what's the big difference? And they said, we have an NHL coach now for the first time in a couple of years. So, to me, I look at it, and these teams that have been bad for a while, that have been drafting high with some great young skill in the game, are starting to play, like the Blues the Blues coming off that last game, right? And you're playing a team that had 5 of its own top 10 picks in the lineup, right? I mean, that was the Edmonton Oilers. And, yeah, I know they've been good for a little while, but they still had 5 of their own top 10 picks in the lineup. I went back and looked at this. The last forward that the St. Louis Blues took with a top 5 pick, you ready for this? Harry Turnbull in 1979.
Harry Turnbull.
Think about that, guys. So, and in all honesty, the Blues have only had 2 top 5 picks since then. And that was 2006. They drafted first overall Eric Johnson, and then 2 years later, Alex Pietrangelo, 4th overall. And the Winnipeg Jets, have done a pretty good job of trying to stay relevant, with their core. And my goodness, Kyle Connor's one of my favorite players to watch in the National Hockey League. And, I love the fact that a guy like that comes in and makes somebody like Patrick Laine expendable, right? Things like that. But in the midst of it all, if you have a down season, and I'll liken it kind of like to what Tampa Bay had going, after in the 07-08 season, where they still had St. Louis, they still had LeCavalier, right? And they end up drafting Steven Stamkos first overall. Kind of the way I bill it, guys, is let the game play the game out, and then we'll deal with this scenario. But I think that's one of the biggest things is just other teams have really gotten better, and some young studs are starting to play.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. Chris, the one thing I really wanted to get into with you is the goaltending situation. Joel Hofer playing tonight, hometown kid. And then I wanted to, sort of see how you feel with Binnington obviously going to the Olympics. What's sort of the dynamic there in St. Louis right now?
Well, it's an interesting one because you cannot hide from the numbers that are what they are. Neither goaltender had a good start to the season. Frankly, the entire team didn't. I mean, when you're playing Connor McDavid and he's got more power play points than anybody on your team has total points, and you're at game 50, something's crazy. So this team got off to a bad start and hasn't been able to recover, really. Now, Joel Hofer's numbers in game really turned around. And frankly, Jordan Binnington's did in November and December. But honestly, guys, what we're seeing, and Jim Montgomery was asked about this yesterday, and as he said, it's, trying to get an answer for this. He says, as a coach, I've never been able to figure this out. Why right now the team seems to just be playing better all-around defensive games in front of Hofer than they are in front of Binnington. And when I talked to I talked to one of the Blues scratch players during that game against Edmonton, and this guy goes, I can't let you we just leave this poor goaltender out to dry. We hang him out to dry every game. And then he's talking about Binnington. So the reality of it is Hofer's numbers since November have been good. Ever since that first career start that he had against Winnipeg, up here at least, in February of 24, and he allowed the 4 goals on the 32 shots. I mean, Hofer's numbers against the Winnipeg Jets in the last 2 games up here in Winnipeg and then in the 3 home games he's had has been good. So he'll get that nod. He's just been playing better in net. Now, to the Binnington side in the Olympics, guys, I tell you so Tampa Bay was just in town. John Cooper did meet with Jordan Binnington at the hotel. Cooper is a huge fan of Jordan Binnington's, knows that Jordan Binnington is going to be key to those guys winning a gold medal over there in Milan. And I can honestly tell you this, and maybe it's naivety on my part, maybe it's just being a fan of Jordan Binnington and seeing just, the player that he's become, the man that he's become, that kind of thing. But guys, I have less than zero concern / worry when it comes to Binnington and the Olympics. And the simple reason is Team Canada is not the St. Louis Blues. And the St. Louis Blues have just had inconsistent, tough play throughout the entire season. That's why they're 3 games under 500, and down to the third to last in the National Hockey League. And I think, unfortunately, Binnington's numbers are partially reflective of that. Now, there are times, without a doubt, he hasn't made a key save that you've needed in certain games, or there's been times where his game just hasn't been where he expects it to be. But, I would tell all of Canada, take a breather and relax. This guy is going to be absolutely fine when you get to Milan because the team in front of him is going to be that much better.
What do you make of the Blues being open for business? Are they open for business? And we keep hearing about Jordan Kyrou because the Jets are looking for a player like that. Could an interdivisional trade actually happen between these two teams in your mind, or is that ridiculous?
Man, that's a funny one because I saw a story on The Athletic where they were kicking the tires of, could you see a Robert Thomas to Minnesota kind of thing, right? Yeah. And again, it's just speculation and rumor. There's no smoke on that that I know of. But could I see it? You don't see it very often. But, yeah, I could see it. Doug Armstrong is a very direct, very practical general manager. And then he has admitted even himself, this is the first time that he in his, what I believe is a Hall of Fame general manager career has gone through this kind of a rebuild. Now, he'll be stepping aside. He'll be moving into the hockey operations president's role solely. Alexander Steen will take over at the end of this year as a general manager. But to me, honestly, I would be surprised if we saw that because I think the Central Division is just that doggone tough, right? I also don't believe that the Blues, unless it's, if you're moving, let's say an Oscar Sundqvist who, just got hurt last game, but he'll be all right. And like Oscar Sundqvist could be a real key depth player for a team on a Stanley Cup run, right? Something like that, maybe you're talking draft picks. To me, where the Blues are is the trades that they're going to trade a core piece like a Kyrie, like a Thomas, like a who knows, a Buchnevich, any one of those kind of players. You've got to have something coming back that can impact. I don't think they're in the mode at this point where they're saying, "Oh, let's trade a guy and get a couple of second-round picks or a first and a second, have those be late-round picks, and then you're drafting where somebody's not impacting your roster for the next 5 years." That may be a component. But it's going to have to include some players. Now, could the Winnipeg Jets, for example, if we play that scenario through, the St. Louis Blues look at each other and go, let's make an old-fashioned hockey trade that changes the total feel of our organizations, a la Florida and Calgary, and I do realize it was Tkachuk, but it's possible. And that's what when you see the rumors and you hear the talk that the Blues are open for business, I believe that they are. I believe that just about anything is on the table. I believe there might just be one or two untouchables on this team. And aside from that, Doug Armstrong's going to do what he needs to improve this team, and he's very realistic, about where it is. I'll go, and real quick, I'll go back to the 17-18 season where the Blues missed the playoffs by 1 point. They lost the playoffs on the last day of the year in a head-to-head game with Colorado. They were just a point or two out of a playoff spot then, and Doug didn't like the feel of the team, and he traded away Paul Stastny, right? So the one thing he is unpredictable when it comes to that kind of thing if there's a deal to be made.
The old Daryl Sutter way of trading Dion Phaneuf, do it right after a game at midnight on Saturday. Yeah.
Listen, at some point in time, here's the thing. If you're again, please make sure I'm not reporting anything. We're playing hypotheticals here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to all of a sudden cause a ton of headlines that aren't real. Okay, but for me, if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, okay, and something just clearly hasn't clicked over a certain number of years, or I try to think of another team just off the top of my head here, but. You're looking and you're going, okay, could a Robert Thomas be a difference maker with 5 years left on a contract here for the Toronto Maple Leafs and you bring a hometown kid? Okay, that's fine, but it may cost you like a Matthew Nyes to get that happen, to turn that around, right? And now you've got a guy that's been part of a Stanley Cup winning team that's centering that 2 years, twice has gotten 60 assists in his career, right? Like to me, it's gonna be that kind of thing, or. If they wanted to take a stab at a Jordan Binnington, does it cost you something like a Matthew Nyes? Like to me, there's hockey trades where teams have to try and adjust, in the salary cap era, and it just that's the kind of thing that I think really kind of has to happen here, where I don't see the Blues in a sell mode where you're selling like they were a few years ago. I see them in an adjustment mode, and but. I'll go back to still, I think, one of the greatest trades in the NHL history happens to be when the Dallas Stars picked up Joe Nieuwendyk.
Yeah.
From Calgary. And it cost them Jerome McGinley. But it won a Stanley Cup, right? Ryan O'Reilly cost the St. Louis Blues Tage Thompson, but it won them a Stanley Cup. Or go back to the great trade that in the end, Calgary wins them a Stanley Cup, but it cost them trading Brett Hull to the St. Louis Blues. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's been done. I think with the salary cap, space that most teams have because of the increase, I really wonder if we see some trades like that could matter.
Yeah. And with the parity this year, it could happen more often than not. We'll see where it goes. Really appreciate your time. I hope you're enjoying beautiful, balmy Winnipeg, and look forward to the game tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's close to 0 Fahrenheit. That's very kind of you guys to pull that off.
We're very welcoming here.
I appreciate, as you always are. I enjoyed the time up here when we were up here for the playoffs. Great people, great fun. We look for a great game tonight, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it a ton. As always, make sure you guys check out the text line, 204-780-6868. The studio, brought to you by Boston Pizza. Saucy savings on pasta every day in January from only $11.99. Again, this hour brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road. And as always, washmethod.com.
Wash Method.
Wash Method. I heard you had a little romance at Wash Method. Is that true?
I did?
I don't know. Maybe.
I can't get my spouse to come to Wash Method with me.
What?
But she goes on her own.
Oh, okay.
Which makes me suspicious.
AirTag?
Well, I shouldn't say that because I'm not allowed to drive her vehicle because it's a lot nicer than mine.
Yeah,
but
I haven't seen you drive, but
I'll say this. There hasn't been a time that I haven't taken the 2006 Buick Rendezvous through where while I'm waiting, a gentleman has not approached me and said, "What year is that beauty?" And I'm like, 2006. It's an excellent condition, I know.
I don't drive it, that's why.
I'm the only one who drives it, that's why.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Make sure you get your text in. We're going to talk about the Bobrovsky fight.
Now's the time to go when it's this cold. You got a garage, stays beautiful, clean.
We have a garage.
And who doesn't need a little romance and warmth right now?
Jim, I could use a lot of romance.
That's you got to get to work on that. Maybe the podcast that might talk about leg warmers will get you there.
I don't think that podcast is helping anything with the conversations, but I'm sure people are going to enjoy that one.
It might not help us, and it could definitely hurt us, and that's why you should probably listen to it.
You should probably listen to it. Again, wherever you get your podcasts, Jets at noon. Check out today's exclusive. Plus, you can listen to this if you missed anything on today's show. You can text the line, like I said, 204-780-6868. Brought to you by Boston Pizza, where it's Pasta Tuesday every day this January from only $11.99. Hungry for saucy savings. Hungry for Boston Pizza. We'll be back. We'll talk about the fight. BP on the other side.
Fight. It's at noon with Cameron Poitras and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
And here comes Bobrovsky all the way down the ice. Look out.
Oh, here we go.
Drops the mitts. Bobrovsky goes after Nedeljkovic.
Oh, yeah.
Sergei Bobrovsky came 200 feet to throw punches with Alex Nedeljkovic.
Oh, yeah. Love that.
Fight. Somebody thinks goalie fights on the text line are ridiculous. They understand two players going at it because they get tempers flared or all that, but to skate the length of the ice. I disagree. If a goalie takes advantage of your teammate, you go the length of the ice. The goalie knows his role is to stay in the pipes, and if he doesn't, if he comes out, fight. Now, this was the worst fight.
Terrible. Yeah.
I've been in 3 fights in my life, and I've lost 2 of them. But I did better than both of those guys. I'll tell you that much right now.
That looks like when kids are fighting, they're just swinging their fists.
Yeah.
Like over the head. It's not actually a punch. It's just swinging. That's what it was. It was brutal. Yeah. But at this point, I don't care what it is. We see it so rarely now that like anytime you get a little piece of it.
And they both the Velks just had a good time with it. And Bobrovsky was like, well, I don't want to do this all the time, but if he's going to come out, blah, blah, blah. So I appreciate the effort. Now, this was nothing like Waugh and Mike Vernon when they went at it and tattooed each other, or Potvin and Hextall and stuff.
Yeah.
But still, it's the emotions of the game, right? And I know, I'm not proponent for fighting, but it's part of the game, and that's why. When your goalie comes out, there's things to be answered for. And I know the people who detest it, like Greg Macklin and I always debate fighting in the game, but he's the first to admit that he would have got out of his chair and not turn the TV off. He's the first guy at a Jets game that sits up and takes notice.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to say sorry for saying that. I think it's a necessary component of the game. And I think when you've played the game, even at a lower level, I'm no superstar, but there were times where you could feel that it was getting there. It was the emotion of the game.
The problem at any other level is, I believe, in senior men's or women's hockey, or even lower, even soccer would get heated and stuff. It's just I often get home and go, we got to go to work tomorrow. We all have jobs
now
and stuff.
For sure.
That's ridiculous. But at the pros, it's an emotional game, and it's been the players believe in it. So
yeah.
And look, Matthew Tkachuk last night we don't want him doing that all the time, but I loved every second of it. So.
Brought to you by Boston Pizza. Saucy
big
savings
game tonight. Big
on pasta every day in January from only $11.99. Thanks for tuning in. Keep the text rolling in. We'll try to get to answer some of those. And Tyson Wicki back with you tomorrow. Thank you, Jeffrey Forche.